Hello, and welcome back to From the Source podcast, episode 13. And probably as many of you have seen by now with the episodes, they are now turning more into running than any other topic that's kind of spoken about on here. So today's episode is no different. And today's episode is about easy pacing and why easy pacing is that game-changing part of your training week or training month or plan that you need to be doing, that I see a lot of people on social media, like we all see, talking about, but there's some parts of it that people are kind of getting wrong or not doing enough of the easy runs compared to your intervals or your tempo runs. So today, as always, going to break it down to that kind of 5 talking points. So we're going to talk about what is zone 2 training, why slow running will build you more of an endurance base and also at the same time increase your confidence, how to know if you're running too fast. I found out about a guy who runs a club that's about slow AF runners club, and a bit about their mindset and how slowing down your runs to like easy pacing will help you prevent any injury and any burnout. So I know we've spoken about on previous episodes about zone 2 training, but I'm going to go back over it again. Had a few people comment on like the TikTok and stuff about zone 2 and people, I can quote you my zone 2 like heart rate bands for zone 2, which are completely different to someone else's. And I feel like people think that, say I said, oh, my zone 2 is 140 to 150 beats per minute, and they're like, right, well, I've got to do that as well. But that depends on like your fitness, how often you've done running. There's loads of different things involved in that. So it's not just a case of like copying someone else's zone 2. You've got to find out your own percentages yourself. So zone 2 is like a low intensity training, and it's about 60 to 70% of your max heart rate, whatever your max heart rate is. So I know I've said on previous episodes that it's loosely 220 minus your age. It is, in a way, but that's like, if you're just starting off, that's just like easy figures just to ease yourself in before you dial it in with time trial tests and everything else, and getting your lactate involved and going down a rabbit hole. So it loosely is 220 minus your age, and whatever that is your max heart rate, and then 60 to 70% of that. So it's an easy pace where you can talk in full sentences without gasping for air. It's really comfortable. You should just be like, it's basically just a slow jog, talk with your mates at the same time. So it's nothing high intensity. You should be able to run further, slower. And you'll know this when you start doing your intervals, that the paces that you'll be running at them will be way quick, and you'll think, how can I keep this up for say 5 or 10k? You're not meant to. That's why interval training is faster than you would run a race at, but it just gets your body used to running at that. So zone 2 specifically targets your aerobic system, just your aerobic system. So not getting too scientific, there's an aerobic system, which is like your zone 2s, and then there's anaerobic, which is like more of your sprinter style stuff. So when you're doing a 100-meter race, it's purely anaerobic, and then kind of 400s would be anaerobic, and then 800s anaerobic, and then as the distance gets further, it on a scale goes from more anaerobic to aerobic, and your zone 2 is basically your most aerobic running. And then your zone 1's like a walk, which obviously is just purely aerobic, but that's not going to help your overall running fitness. So that aerobic system is like your foundation for that. And I know I asked in like the last few episodes about if we're going a bit more scientific into things, and I thought I'd just add these little bits in, but I'm not going to go full science on everyone. So it increases your mitochondrial density, which basically means that the energy can transfer through the cells a lot better, a lot easier. So you are getting fitter each time that exchange happens faster and more efficient, improves your fat metabolism so that you can run for longer without depleting your glycogen. So I don't know how scientific we want people to go with this, but I'm just going to kind of leave that part there. Your glycogen stores are what you need to replenish for energy, basically, and it builds a strong base doing the zone 2 training without wearing you down. So interval trainings will, they're short, half an hour to 60 minutes, but they'll knacker your body for the rest of the day. It's pretty much all out type stuff. Whereas your zone 2, you should, be able to do that a lot of the times in a week. And then I found a quote from an elite running coach called Matt Fitzgerald, who says, "You have to go slow to go faster later." And that is just a quote that, will loosely change on the internet, but you'll see flying about, and it is literally true, which is weird to think that you want to get faster. So you should think that you should have to be running faster all the time. Back to the zone 2 running will make you faster and stronger for all them runs, and you just add in the little intervals or the tempos that will just, tweak things a little bit. So why does running slow build endurance and your confidence at the same time? So running slower, and this is maybe, it gets misinterpreted sometimes about like doing a zone 2 running, but you can also do this on like a bike, like zone 2 on a bike. And I think a lot of people do that with running now. Is obviously you're running a lot per week, and it's a lot of stress on your joints and your lower limbs and stuff. But if you go on a bike, it takes all the weight bearing out of it, but you still get in the zone 2. I mean, you'll obviously cycle further than you will run, but that's also another way to get your mileage in and also really reduce that physical stress your body goes through. So the easy runs will allow you to increase or have more weekly mileage, less physical stress on your body, which will help you become injury-free, which obviously we'll speak about later, injury-free, and allow you to progress more. So the slower efforts, you're in more control of what you're doing. You're not just focused on your watch and going balls to the wall on that interval running, and it reduces the amount of injury that you potentially will get. So you're not putting as much stress on your body, like I said before. And a little bit of the science, so it obviously boosts your aerobic capacity, which is your VO2 max, which you'll see people speaking about. And the idea is that you want to increase your VO2 max over time. And if you've got smartwatches and stuff, you'll be able to see that, or iPhones. I don't know anything about Android, but it'll increase like your VO2 max. And also doing the zone 2s will help like your running economy. So that's basically down to like your technique. So if obviously you're just starting off, obviously if you're just running at a slower pace, which seems like common sense, you're able to nail down arm position, leg position, your head being upright, not like slumping, practice like, using your core when you're running and stuff like that. So it'll help you become more efficient when you're moving. So obviously as you increase those speeds, if your body's all out of whack, you're going to really struggle to progress because, you might not be as aerodynamic, or you might not be using your legs as much to generate as much power, the amount of power that you need for it. So mentally, these long runs, they feel good. I say that sometimes. I do long runs, got a 19k tomorrow, but they do feel good. But then when you do so many of them at such long distances, they sometimes can get a bit boring, which is where, get your mates to come along, listen to more music, listen to a podcast and stuff. But each time you go out for those long runs, they'll feel better physically. It's more like the mental side, but they'll feel physically better, and you'll feel like you can run longer. And then obviously when you're adding in your intervals and stuff, you'll be getting faster at these long runs because you're used to running at higher intensities than the interval sessions. So a bit of a research from the Journal of Sport and Exercise Psychology. Been doing a bit of research on all this because I quite like it and into like reading a lot at the minute. So found that positive experiences during exercise are strongly linked to long-term adherence. So bear that in mind when you're doing the long runs. Not that you'll be running thinking of quotes like that. You're probably thinking, get me home for a pint, or I want a brew, or why am I up so early? But slow runs will help literally with everything, really. And when you're starting off as a beginner, the slow runs are the ones that will give you confidence to be like, actually, no, I actually thought I could run 5K and I've run like 7, so it is possible. So slow runs definitely help. Now, how to know if you're running too fast, which is linked to the zone 2, which is previously spoke about before. It loosely is the talk test. So if you can't speak in full sentences and you can't have a conversation like this whilst moving, you're going too fast. And to some people listening to this, which I was the same, and be like, no, zone 2 is 5:30k pace for me. It's nothing more or nothing less. And then when you start off, you're like, actually, no, it's 6 minutes. And you just need to swallow a bit of that ego and a bit of that pride to be like, fine, it's 6 minutes. What the hell is the difference between, what's 30 seconds really? Over a 10k, yeah, it's 5 minutes. But what does that really matter? Because if you're not running the zone 2s when you're meant to be running the zone 2s and running, a zone 3 or a high zone 3, you're not getting that benefit. And you think constantly across that week, you're going to do more zone 2s than you are intervals. But if the zone 2s are more like interval pace, you're putting your body through a lot and your body is not recovering at all. So cut the ego out a little bit and just do the talk test. And you may have, anyone, maybe not new to this, but may have heard like of RPE, which is like rate of perceived exertion, which that's usually marked out of 10. So an easy run should feel like a 4 out of 10 effort for you, whatever your 4 out of 10 effort is, which might not be different to Kipchoge's, might not be different to like a beginner just starting off that's never ran before. So it's specific to you, which is the point I was making at the start with the heart rate and stuff. It's specific to you. And obviously there'll be people out there that'll be the same level as you. But don't just take it as everyone's zone 2 is the same all across the board, which it isn't. So if your easy run or your zone 2 runs like leaving you gasping, or like you're sore afterwards, or you feel like just, completely drained, or you're not even like finishing it, it wasn't an easy run. That is literally, those 3 points are very simple to understand. And like I said, many new runners are very surprised about how easy their easy run is, or how slow their easy run is. And if you're just starting off, it might just be like a fast walk, or like a really light jog that basically just feels like a walk. And that, like I reiterated on the last episode, is absolutely fine. It's a starting block. And then when you add in the odd interval session, the odd tempo run, a few sprints around the park, that is what's going to help bring that will change that light brisk walk to a slow jog, and lower those times and help that heart rate. So it's just all a mixed bag, really. It's not just, I'll always be a brisk walker. It will get better, and watching that progress is, well, I think when you go through it and it all clicks, it's like, wow, actually I was right. Not me personally, but when you're thinking about that to yourself. And often a zone 2 is meant to feel like too easy. I've done them before where you're just like, is this really the pace I'm meant to run? This feels like really easy. But like I said, the zone 2 area, easy run area, is where that proper magic happens. So stick to it, run to it, and only change it when, your heart rate zones are changing and that RPE level is getting like way below 4 if it's way too easy. And obviously you're running this in the wrong zone. So, as I mentioned before, this slow AF runners club, don't take a rocket scientist to work out what AF means. So it was created by Martinus Evans, who was a marathon runner who turned an insult of like you're slow AF into a movement of basically about like a radical inclusion of like all runners. So he basically made it into, it doesn't matter if you're like, everyone thinks you're a slow runner, like you are a runner. So obviously that club has now done really well. Over 25,000 members worldwide, and it basically, the basis is that all paces, all body types are all welcome. And I think it's that massive inclusion that a lot of people, I understand that run clubs, obviously wanting everyone to be fast and do well for the run clubs, but there's not many run clubs where it's just all about like, just inclusion, just like people being together and socialising and just kind of getting out and being active. Obviously the government pump everything up through us about being active and watching our mental health and, you know, physical health and stuff, but there's not a lot out there. Obviously park run is the first thing that comes to mind for me, but even that now is turned into everyone wants to win a park run pretty much, or there's like an elites and then everyone else. So obviously this run club just is very inclusive to everyone, and the message is everybody is a runner's body, which is what I've said before, is pretty much if you can put one foot in front of each other and it's quicker than a walk, you're a runner. And that's really just as simple as it is. And you can just do that pace for the rest of your life. Or you can do what me and a few others do, is build on that and want to get quicker or fitter or better, or, you know, whatever it is. So the group or the club focuses on owning your pace. So having a bit of pride about it, speaking about it, not being afraid about it. Because obviously we know there's a lot of people that don't want to talk about the pace out of fear of embarrassment or, you know, humiliation. That, oh, you run a 7-minute pace, like you're really slow, don't hang about you. And that isn't the case. And I'd say that to anyone who's 7 or 8 minute runner, like I'm more than happy to run with people like that. And if I can help you run that 5K at whatever pace, and then after, you know, you go home and then I go back out, it's not much of an inconvenience. I think people really underestimate that, and, you know, you're potentially benefiting someone in that moment. And then once they're quicker and better and more confident, then, you know, you've got one more running buddy to add to the group. So it ditches the comparison culture. And, you know, this run club really focuses on, there's no what time do you run at and then you're in that group. It's more like we'll just all run together, and if you're in front of me, you are. If I'm behind you, then I am. And that's just as easy as it is. And it's what the last thing they focus on kind of is what I've always said, is that, you know, when I said last episode as well, is about celebrating just showing up, and not just about finishing fast. You've shown up. You've said you were going to do it. You probably had doubts about turning up. You've shown up. You've ran. You've probably enjoyed it because you're just around people and forget that you're running. You've finished, and that's it. Celebrate turning up and doing what you said. And I think that massively gets forgotten about, and it does affect people from turning up, because it's, and I'm not saying that, you know, celebrating every person that crosses the line, having a massive party, but, you know, a lot of like a well done's, and rather than this whole, oh, what did you get? Well, I ran it at 4:20. Well, I ran it at 4 minutes. I must be better than you. And you might be better than me on that day, but I could have not slept well. I might not have eaten. I might have been away with work. There's loads of things that affect it. And I think that really just gets in people's minds. And a bit of a quote from Martin S. Evans. I hope I'm saying his name right, his first name anyway. He said, you don't have to be fast. You just have to be fierce enough to start. So, bit of an emotional quote, but it's true. You know, just turn up, do what you need to do, and you know, celebrate that you've just started and that you finished, regardless of if you've ran, walk, or walked it all, or ran it all. So don't be afraid to start, and I'll put a link to the Slow as Fuck, I've said it, the Slow as Fuck Runners Club, in the description. for anyone who wants to have a look. So, last point is how slowing down will help prevent injury and burnout. So, if you're running fast all the time, it's going to put a lot of impact on joints, muscles, tendons, your heart, everything, your mind. You'll feel like, when's this hell really going to end? So you can't, not even the professional athletes, run max all the time. It's impossible. Your body will take a hammering. You'll be like, yeah, I'm doing the work really hard. I want to be better. I must be better. I must be getting better and fitter and all that lot, but you really aren't. If you probably to draw it out on a graph, yeah, the intensity is there. So each week you're probably like, going up for the week, but where is the starting point the next week starting from? And I bet you'll see like a change in, it'll be a lot lower than where you finish the week, because you would have to put your body through absolute hell to get yourself improving, but that starting point will be a lot lower on average. And then studies have shown that injury rates skyrocket when runners exceed safe intensity or volume too soon. So you sometimes on a running plan, you'll think, oh, tomorrow's a recovery run. And then you'll be like, oh, I'll just do like intervals instead. And you'll be able to do the intervals, yeah. But that compounding effect of all them recovery sessions missed will increase the chances of injury. And injury's not like, you're breaking your leg or actually tearing a muscle, but it just be them little tweaks, ankle niggles. You can't quite push off right. You get the arches in your feet are hurting, and just little things like that will just compound and build up, and then all of a sudden you'll have to stop, and you'll be out of the running plan for ages, and then by the time you start again, you'll be back to square one. So slow running, well, I mean, people talk about shin splints quite a lot, but it'll reduce the risk of shin splints and stress fractures. So stress fractures are like tiny little fractures in your bone that obviously aren't enough for like a cast or for you to say you've broken your leg, but if you imagine you've got quite a few of them, they'll be painful, they'll be niggling, and that'll affect, your training. And the slow running will give you body time to adapt to the increase in mileage. So some people go from like 20k a week and be like, no, I want to run a marathon, so I've got to run like at least 40k in a week. And they go 20 to 40 to 60. And that massive jump will just write your body off. So doing more slow runs will give your body time to adapt to the increased mileage, and it won't be sitting there going like, what the fuck is this? What are you putting me through? So just slow runs, like I said, add a few intervals in, happy days. The slow run will definitely help that mental burnout that people experience, and I experience now. But I think that's just because the amount of running I've been doing, you're just like, God, is it another day? I feel like the rest days just fly by. And there'll be, reduce all that pressure of people saying like, oh, every session you've got to absolutely nail it. You've got to go out hard, you've got to train hard, overtraining, doesn't exist. And I think overtraining in terms of if you're doing just zone twos, then yeah, it doesn't exist. But if you're doing heavy ass rock and roll sessions every time, it will do. And the slow running will help you recover faster. So you can train a bit more consistently. And like I said before, if your training plan's up, down, because you're doing intervals and fast runs all the time, you're probably not getting a lot of distance in, and you're putting your body through a lot. For what, really? So give your body that time to relax by doing those slow runs, and it'll make everything a lot better. And a little bit of another quote, which this episode felt like a full quote before we finish, is keep your easy days easy so your hard days can be hard. Which is true. That just allow that time for your zone two, just your body to just tick over and do its thing. And then when it's go time on those interval sessions, you can put, your full effort into it and absolutely smash them, rather than just doing it half-arsed, because like I said, every run this week has been a zone 3 at least, and your body has not had time to recover. So please don't be embarrassed about running slow zone 2s. They're your zone 2s, they're your times. And then when it comes to interval sessions, get a massive group of you together and think, right, well, I'm just going to go all out for it. And you'll notice the difference between someone who's doing high intensity all the time to someone who's doing it correctly and doing slow runs and intervals, for example. They will benefit more than the all-out rock and roller who's telling everyone he's running 330s all the time and, all that crap that you hear. So for anyone who's got this far in the episodes, please, I'm not begging. I promise I'm not begging. Please do the zone 2s. Please listen to your body. Make sure you got your watch set correctly to what your zones are, because I'm pretty sure when you just get a watch, it'll just set like generic based on like size, weight, age, gender, all of that lot. So get it as specific as you can. Run to those times, all those speeds, and I'm hoping you'll enjoy your training more, and the benefits you'll see faster or better than putting your body through absolute hell. And obviously I've mentioned the Slow AF running club, but also we have the Strava Run Club, which is linked in the bio and in the description for this video. So if you want to join that, compare runs, or, just join another run club on Strava, please join that. And if you enjoy these episodes, or you're watching this on any social media, please give a like, comment back. Please let me know what you think, or, what your thoughts are on any of the episodes, or what your opinions are of this. So yeah, please like, share, comment, and I'll see you on the next one.